Welcome to my channel, The Binge Eating Therapist. I'm Sarah, former binge eater turned psychotherapist, and my mission is to use this space to bring content to you that will help you understand your struggle with food and break free from binge eating. And I received a message in my inbox asking for tips about how to use journaling to recover. And my initial response to that message was, I am terrible at journaling. I don't think I'm the person to be dishing out tips to anyone about how to use journaling to recover. But as I reflected on it a bit more, I realised that I have used journaling and I do use it with my clients sometimes. And it also made me think of what is journaling? It's not just this dear diary, like this is what happened in my day and this is how I'm feeling. So when I broke it down in my mind to journaling really just simply being writing stuff down about your experience, it started to come together a little bit clearer in my mind about how journaling or simply writing stuff down can be so helpful when it comes to binge eating recovery. And I've divided it into 3 ways of using it, and I think each of them has their strengths and merit. So the first one is record keeping. So to write stuff down is a way of creating a snapshot of what's going on in time. So of course the first thing a lot of people might think of is a food diary. Well, food diaries tend to be pretty associated with dieting, and for a lot of people keeping a food diary can be really triggering. There is, however, a really good app called Rise Up and Recover. It's free and it's a food diary app, but there's no quantities, there's no calories, so you write your food in free text. You get to check in with your hunger levels, your mood, and there's a space for comments. So this is really good actually for some people to use this as a way of checking in with how they feel before and after eating certain foods, particularly if you're noticing that food really affects your mood. And one of the things I really love about this particular app is when you go in to record something, it doesn't show you what you've previously eaten. I think that can be really difficult for some people, like a lot of these diet tracking apps. You go in to record your dinner and you're confronted with exactly what you've eaten today and how many calories, which is not helpful. So with this, you don't see any of that unless you email it to yourself as a PDF. So you could sit down after a few days or at the end of the week and just have a look at it all together and try and make some sense out of what's going on for you. This one is not for everyone. It's just if this kind of thing you think would actually be useful. I tend to move away from that kind of thing. It's just not for me. But record keeping can be as simple as keeping a mood diary, or it could be a case of just recording those moments when you feel really out of control. And any kind of writing stuff down could be a type of record keeping. So for me, I've started journals many times and never lasted very long. I'm just not consistent with it. So what I've got, some of it's been thrown away, but what I've got over those 10 years that were really difficult is about 6 starts of journals. But it's been really nice might not be the right word, but I think it's been really helpful for me to go back and see what I wrote then, because it's a record of that moment in time. And for me, my memory of that time was that I was absolutely miserable and in utter despair. And I wasn't sure whether I was misremembering, was I exaggerating it, because memory is not the most reliable thing. And then I go back and I read these journal entries and I'm like, gosh, yeah, it was that bad. I did feel that bad. And that in some way was actually quite validating. So for that reason, it can be quite helpful. And then the second way of journaling or writing stuff down is for catharsis. And by catharsis, I mean letting something out, letting something go, expressing something. Sometimes there could be so much going on in your mind and your emotions and there isn't anywhere to express that. Perhaps there isn't anybody that you could talk to about it or that you would want to talk to about it. So that ability to get a pen and paper and to just write uncensored, everything that's going on in your mind. And this can be really uncomfortable to read back actually, because when you're in those heightened emotions, your brain can take you to some pretty scary, difficult, irrational places. And I know for me, my fear was always that somebody would find it. I also thought, even if I hid it well, like, what if I died and somebody found this and they believed that this is what I was like all the time? I don't know if that makes sense, but for me in those moments, like, if you read what I wrote if I read what I wrote when I wasn't feeling like that, it sounds really dramatic, and yet that was my experience at the time. So the catharsis thing, if you can bear to do it and keep it, it might be helpful as sort of a record keeping later on down the line to see where you are at. If that feels uncomfortable, throw it away. I did that quite a few times where I've written stuff down and then I threw it away. I kind of like to have them now, but at the time that's what I needed to do to feel safe, and it was what I needed to do so that I could be really honest about how I was feeling. And by letting it out, you release something. And the whole idea of catharsis, it's like a chemical change in the body. So you've released some emotion and maybe you feel a little calmer and a little clearer afterwards. And then the third one that I really, really love is using journaling, writing stuff down as a way of intention setting. Now, I bang on and on about intentions because I just think that they are so helpful in recovery. When setting yourself rules doesn't help, setting yourself an intention really can support you to getting to where you want to go. So I see there's two parts to an intention. There's one, like, what is it that you want to put your focus on? And what is it you want to create? There's so much in our lives that is outside of our control, but one of the things that we have much more influence on is where we put our attention. So this is a really good one to do in the morning. Let's say you're working on body acceptance. And it's tough because, like, maybe you felt accepting for a while and you've fallen back into old thought patterns and you're just having a really difficult time with what your brain is telling you about your body. To sit down in the morning and to write out what your intentions are for the day. It might be like, today I want to focus on appreciating the things my body does. That would be a really lovely intention. And that idea of sitting in the morning and committing it to paper and getting your head clear is like, that's how you become the creator of your life. That's how you intentionally create your life, is by choosing like what direction you send your mind in. And there'll be times we get lost, and there are times when the old thoughts come in and you set an intention and half an hour later you've forgotten it and 3 days later you remember that intention that you were trying to remember to do. Fine, breathe, let go, reset the intention. So I think with something like journaling, I think one thing that put me off was I was never consistent. And I think my advice to you is don't worry about being consistent. This is just a tool. Pick it up, put it down, use it or don't use it kind of whenever you see fit. I've definitely gone through periods of time where I've used it more and other times where I haven't written anything down for a long time. But the most powerful thing about journaling, about taking the time to write things down, is that you are making a decision to go inward. Because this is about getting your experience and putting it on paper. I know for me, over and over again, when I was feeling bad, I didn't want to feel bad. Okay, it didn't feel good. But then what that meant is I was always looking outside of myself for something to feel better, even if it was something like so-called like healthy pursuit, like reading a book or going on YouTube and finding a video like this to try and make me feel hopeful and a bit better. All these things can be really helpful, the information out there, but the information out there is not going to change what's going on in here. So whilst I think all that stuff is so important, it helped me, and obviously I create stuff like this to help you. Unless you take that information and bring it inwards to kind of combine the two into an experience, nothing's going to change. There isn't going to be a video out there that's suddenly going to make your struggle with binge eating or body image go away. There's nothing I can say or do to fix this for you. But hopefully what I do is encourage and inspire you to take these things and then use them yourself. It's so much more enticing to look for an answer outside of us, but I think the answer involves going inwards. That's the challenge. That's why a lot of this stuff is so difficult. That's why you can know so much about binge eating recovery, about what to do. You can know it all and nothing changes, because it's these moments of needing to go inwards, to reflect on our experience, to process our experience in a different way. We think we're in our experience because we're running our tapes over and over again and we're aware of how we're feeling to some degree. But to slow down, stop and write things down, that can be a really powerful exercise. Those are my thoughts today. See you on the next video.